Thank you all. So I think the concept of this pitch was, why is healthcare so hard? And why is it a difficult industry to play in? And so I have to try and balance saying, yes, it's great, and whining about it, because there really are a lot of difficulties with this market. And, but I am assuming that everyone wants to be an entrepreneur, and I wanted to start off with what I think are the key elements to being an entrepreneur. I think you have to have passion, integrity, courage, and resilience. I think those four are your keys to being able to survive. Resilience is tops amongst them. As things that you wish will happen don't, you have to find an alternative route, and another alternative route, and another alternative route, and you'll see that that's how entrepreneurs really survive. They've asked me to start most of these presentations with one claim that you'll remember, and this is the one I'm going to use today, which is, I have been clinically diagnosed as being intense. And I don't know how many people can brag that, but my other one I was going to use, I've also been chased on the plains of Africa by a king buffalo. But I thought intense was more impressive, so. I'm Pittsburgh. I'm all Pittsburgh, and as I said, my undergrad was at Pitt. I'm here a CMU alum. I love the city. I love everything it does. And I'm an entrepreneur. We licensed technology that was developed at Carnegie Mellon that uses microbursts of learning in a conversational format to prepare you for surgery. And I could pull it up, but I think you'll get it. When you go to the site, your surgeon says, hi, you're going to have surgery in a couple weeks, and we're here to prepare you. So I have a guide who's going to walk you through everything you need to know about your upcoming surgery. Let's start walking through it. And then starts taking you through it, asks you questions. Have you had your surgery tests? Have you done all your testing? Do you smoke? Do you have diabetes? And changes the directions based upon your response. At any time, the person who's going to have the surgery can ask their own questions. And the most common one they ask is, will it hurt? And the search, the natural language processing, the NLP, and the search goes through and finds that answer to that question and plays it back and says, yes, it's going to hurt. Sorry to tell you that, and everybody will do the best to manage it, but pain is part of the healing process. So I know that we get the most responses and questions based upon the pain because we have a log of every conversation with every patient. So we know exactly what kind of engagements we're getting. On average, we did a study of about 200 patients, and of those, we found 75% of the patients who were introduced to the program used it, which is a very good engagement rate and utilization in patient engagement. The average utilization was 95 minutes, which is really off the chart. And that's true utilization. If there's a dead time in any session for 2.5 minutes, we cut it and start a new session. So we're not including lunch hours in here, and we're not including restroom breaks. This is true utilization time. On average, patients come back 3 times, and they're convinced it makes a difference. Surgeons see a difference. People ask more questions. And then our client did the data, which makes this more relevant because it wasn't us. There's no opportunity for us to exaggerate the data. Our client took the utilization data by patient and followed it through Epic, which is their electronic health record, all the way through to the claims data, which is the cost. And they were able to take all of the costs for the patients who used the program versus who did not, same surgery, same site, same surgeons, same time frame. And what we found is the very first 30 days after release, after discharge, the savings were 50%. If you looked at the full 180 day, it was 30%. And you have to remember that this is an industry that's hovering around a zero margin. It's really, the stress of this industry is amazing, yes?
Did you track readmissions at all? Were readmissions part of that?
Yes, readmissions were part of that as well, and they were impacted. The things that were impacted were readmissions, emergency room visits, specialists, follow-up care, drugs, adherence, we look at that. One of the things during the program, we tell the patient, reconnect with your primary care physician as soon as possible. You know, don't rely on the experts from your surgeons, they're to follow up, but get back to your primary care with your questions. And what we found is for our patients who did the program, primary care visits went up. So it's like what we've found is our coach is impacting their behavior. And we interviewed an engineer, a very technically oriented person, who had the system, and we said afterwards, how did this change you and what you did? And he said, I think you kept me from having an infection. And we said, why do you believe that? And he said, well, you told me to use a clean towel after my shower. I never use a clean towel, I just grab the one that's there. And I think the lesson there is people do it if you tell them, and it's the little things that are really going to impact healthcare. It's reminding them not to let their grandchildren visit, and reminding them to use their medication, and to tell the doctor if they're taking any health foods or any special diets. So that's where we've started. We've done this program in cardiac care. We've expanded over to the Cleveland Clinic. And we've done the same model with valve repair and replacement. That average utilization and the data validates this result. The average utilization there is about 67 minutes. And we've got some really excellent feedback. We've now moved over to liver transplant, and we're working with liver transplant patients. And some subtleties about these kinds of challenges is the nature of a person who's had open heart surgery in 3 weeks is very intense, and they're going to look at the training and they're going to go after it today. The patient who comes in who's probably very, very ill and is waiting to have a liver transplant over the next year and a half doesn't have the same sense of urgency. And often you can't even engage with the patient. You have to rely on caregivers. So the nature of the engagement, right now if you think about what we do is you go to a doctor at post-discharge. This is the way patient engagement works for most of America. While they're filling out the sheet of what so you had a vaccination and we put stitches in your ankle. And they put that code into the medical record, and what that causes is on discharge, it causes a paragraph to print on your discharge sheets. And that's your level of engagement compared to what we're doing here. So I think we're taking it so many levels deeper. But it also means that this kind of and level of engagement isn't for everyone. It's not for vaccinations, and it's not for stitches on your ankle, but it is for surgeries, and it is for transplants, it's for lung cancer, it's for chronic disease, and we're delivering programs in all of those areas. One key area that we've added to since last time I was here is we have some additional IP. So what we've taken is we have the coach who interacts with you in any number of ways and tells you it's time to take your meds, and don't let your grandkids visit. But so what we did is we filed an international patent to include medical devices in the conversation. It's not as simple as saying, Alexa, what's the reading on my glucometer? That's a one-way interpretation, that's a one-way motion, and it's not covered by this IP. What this IP is about is a loop, where I say to my dialysis machine has a coach on it, and the coach says, how are you comfortable? I'm showing the temperature of the stuff, that we won't use that word, of the stuff is a little warm. Are you feeling warm? And the patient says, yeah, I am feeling a little warm. It might make sense to lower it. And then the coach sends out a message to the machine to modify the function of the machine. And then goes back to the patient and says, "There's that better?" The patient says, "Yeah, that's a lot better, and I don't feel as nervous as I was feeling whenever it was getting warm." So it's a systems patent covering that, but the other part of it is the big data play that's behind it. Because the second part of the patent is the ability to do linguistic analysis on that combined set of data. The data that combines what the coach says, what the patient says, what the device said, and what the metrics read, and put that all into a database and apply the linguistic analysis to that data set. And you think about it, we do big data all the time, but when do we ever hear what the patient's saying? We're watching the data and the BIPs coming up, but when did we ever hear that 3 days before the patient had their stroke, they started to say they felt very nervous and dizzy? And if we can start incorporate those linguistic feedback into it, it's just another level of discovery that I think we can have. So that's what we're doing, and it's a huge market, it's growing. The conversational element of this market has been identified as a separate segment now. So 5 years ago, when I said we were doing a patient engagement, people said, "So what? We already printed out those discharge forms." Then people started realizing it was making a difference. There was a lot of difference that said, there's a lot of data and research that showed if you have an engaged patient in any area of healthcare, your costs are 30% less. And really, that's the kind of savings we saw over the 180-day saving period, a 30% savings. So it validated what research said. So it's a beautiful market, isn't it? Who wouldn't die to be here or sell your firstborn, because this is lovely. What's the big deal about it? Well, it's really big. I mean, you know that a big pile of every dollar is going into healthcare every year. You know that 2 sectors represent all of the spending, all of those dollars, so it's very targeted. You just have to go after the hospitals and the primary care providers. It's well understood. You can go right down the street. It's not like your customer is in Antarctica. They're everywhere. You know them. Everybody has a friend who's a doctor and will be at one a couple times at least a year. So the staff is there. We know all the data, and there's plenty of metrics. You can get metrics on healthcare till you die. We know how much they spend by hospital, readmissions. There's just data everywhere. So this is any MBA programs. This is your dream market, right? Doesn't get better than this. So what's the problem? There are a few that make this one of the slowest to adapt change of all industries. And basically, they're responsible for lives. It's complex. It's highly regulated. The payment models are evolving, and they're under incredible pressure. And every day now, imagine if you were in an industry where your future revenue models were dependent upon what the politicians decided. I mean, the level of uncertainty, thinking, okay, what if Sanders wins? But what if Warren wins? What if Biden wins? And then, will any of it actually happen? I mean, the level of uncertainty with the political football that they've made out of healthcare is horrible. And I think it's undermined that. I'd like someday to be able to quantify what the dollar loss and impact of the politicizing of healthcare does to the spending of the system and the sanity of healthcare workers. And, you know, innovation, just going through that summary, they're saving people's lives. And the Hippocratic Oath says they cannot jeopardize lives. They can improve on the current standard of care, but above all, cause no harms, and they can improve efficiency. But you have to prove it before you can launch it. So it's not like you can say, okay, FedEx, let's try a new way to make the trucks go faster. And then your downside is the trucks don't go faster. Where this one, let's try a new way of delaying the onset of cancer. and you end up killing people. People, so that in itself, the importance of what our healthcare system does makes it a conservative and cautious adopter of anything. And it puts you the onus on the entrepreneur. You have to prove what you're proposing is safe, and you have to prove it's better, and to prove you save money. And we're not going to pay you until you do those things. It's traditionally the way that challenge comes. The challenge of proving it is, and this is something that was absolutely a shock for me before I entered the healthcare system. They don't have the data connected. They've spent the last 5 years putting electronic health records in. Whenever you put an EHR into your system, I can guarantee everyone in your system is crippled for 5 years, and you probably have at each hospital. I can tell when someone's implementing their EMR because when I go in the cafeteria, there's an entire section cordoned off for the consultants from the electronic healthcare company. It's not a beautiful picture, and the electronic health records themselves does not allow you to say, you were here today and had an x-ray, how much did that cost? And it's just, you can't control what you can't measure. And this entire industry is really stifled by the inefficiency of that. And then you have, so I mean, there's the nature that's inherent in the system itself. But just think about it. If I made a change today and the patient had 6 surgeries, what did that change impact? So looking at your data and looking at your results longitudinally can be for cause and effect, can be very challenging. And it can also be a reason why someone who doesn't really want to change what they do today can resist accepting your improvement. Yeah, you can't really prove that. No, you're right. Right? Unless we kill 7 people, and that's wrong. There's also, and again, you don't see it till you get close to it. Some of the data that you'd really want to be able to drive at the measurements and looking at the system is encoded. We did a program for Cleveland Clinic, and they wanted to be able to customize the training for the patient based upon what kind of valve you were getting. That's not encoded in the electronic health record, so we had to create a separate intake just for the details of your valve surgery to drive the surgery. Now, it's like, really? You don't have the kind of valve and the kind of surgery? And then you have the human intervention that says, well, maybe that field is there, but I'm not going to look for it, and I as a physician, and I'm in an awful hurry, I'm just going to put it in comments. So a lot of your data ends up in comments. And these are the kinds of, it's just the transition from a non-electronic environment to an electronic environment. And a lot of people say, oh, it's all electronic. No, I was sitting in a major hospital's enterprise meeting, and the one person was giving a report and said, every hospital in our system is using the electronic health record and has access to the patient portal. And the one group raised their hand and said, our patients don't. It's like, can you talk to them and find out why they don't? But you're not surprised when you see this in the system. It's just, it's an evolving system, and that's what makes it a challenge. Hospital systems are also complex. There's a lot of M&A going about, and they're complex organizations. There's a key change that's going on. A lot of hospitals are going from a hospital organization where every hospital has its own president. Often they had their own board. They had their own, all the departments were in there. They had the head of cardiology. They had the head of endocrinology. Every hospital. You see it in Pittsburgh in the old hospitals. Mercy had their president and board. West Penn had their own. Everybody had their own. And now what they're doing is they're changing those silos and they're making them service lines. So now you do see that there's a cardiac organization across all locations. And the centralizing of that is changing the nature. But again, change is a tough thing for an organization to absorb. And you also have a lot of organizational impacts to a change like that. If I used to have 5 presidents within cardiology in each hospital, I want 1 now. So that means you're impacting people's lives, people's roles, and there are a lot of, healthcare is a lot of hubris. Again, there's many hospitals, there's hundreds of practices and outpatients, and labs and clinics, all of which do not particularly talk to each other. There's system, and this is what I was talking about, the system level leadership, the hospital level leadership, and the service line leadership. And then you layer in the government committees, the clinical committees, the regulatory arms, and this is truly a complex industry. I just mentioned a little bit of the heavily regulated. You have the FDA, JCO, legal requirements, compliance, internal review boards, confidentiality, and HIPAA, and data security. Data security is so critical in this area. It really, they all scrutinize every data transfer that you're proposing with them. It's a very highly scrutinized. And they're not, you said, oh my gosh, this is overreacting. Why do I have to sign a HIPAA release every time I go to urgent care? But they're not overreacting because the penalties can be astronomical. $100,000 to $500,000. There's over $1 million. There's all kinds of the penalties for each incident of a violation of HIPAA. You can see 50,000 per incident, up to $1.5 million. I mean, it's really a crazy environment. And malpractice is real. And there are suits taken against companies and against people who have implemented innovations, and those innovations have caused harm. Here's 3 examples I pulled out. And the harms and the malpractice settlements were 62 million, 60 million, and 30 million. And this was due to innovation. So it's a complex buying process. The decision is siloed. You have to have the doctor try it and prove it. So first of all, you have to have a physician who's willing to say, I'll do this, I'll try this. Then they do it, and then they have to prove it. And there's many decision levels. There's the service line. There's, is it surgery? Is it imaging? Is it, so you have this matrix of different influencers, and there's many gatekeepers. There's many people who like it the way it is because they have developed a power based upon the way it is. And a change to the way it is going to threaten that. This is true of any innovation within any industry. You've seen it. But I think it's especially true here in a system that's so dominated with people and dominated with longevity in their roles. And then there's also formularies which limit treatment choices. So you may have a new innovation, but it's not a defined formulary that you can even begin to evaluate inside of a hospital system. So that's something you also have to overcome. There's evolving payment methods, and this gets into what we're seeing with politicizing of healthcare. Are we going to have Medicare for all? Are we going to have single payer? Are we going to have tiered systems? Before, everything was all fee for service. If you got a Band-Aid, it was $1. If you got an aspirin, that was $1 or $300. And the more you got, the more they got paid, and that was great. But the Affordable Care Act began to introduce bundled payments and value-based payments. And now we're beginning to dismantle some of the Affordable Care Act changes, but many of those have stayed behind. And now there's hybrid payments out there. An example is in liver transplant. It's not a bundled payment, but it's a negotiated fee. So you get 800, I don't, the number's between 750 and 850. Let me just say, you get $800,000 for a liver transplant, and here's your bill. Here's what you're going to get. And if the Cleveland Clinic spends $700, they get to keep the difference. If it goes over, they're going to get penalized for the amount that goes over. Different structures, some people won't let you go over what you agreed to. Other structures will let you charge for a portion of the overage. So they'll give you 20% of the overage now. But then they also compromise the savings, so they'll let you only keep half of the savings. So there's all kinds of variations. It's like when you're solving a problem and there's 7 million variations of the way the rules can work, it's really hard to optimize those scenarios. This is what we put on the backs of the healthcare system every day. And who benefits from an innovation can really shift. We had a situation where we've developed a program for lung cancer patients. And it helps patients stay out of the hospital and stay out of the emergency room. There's something that happens if you're a lung cancer patient and you have a caregiver and the minor thing goes wrong, what they want to do is rush you to the ER. Well, do you know what's at the ER? There's a lot of other sick people. And you have been on chemo likely and you have no antibiotics in your system, antibodies in your system. You're challenged, and now you're in the disease-infested world, and the doctor who's there is not an oncologist because you probably came in at night, so they admit you. And then in the next day when they can finally reach the oncologist, what they find is, oh, that's a normal reaction that happens to chemo. All you need to do is rinse your mouth with saline. But it's like, what can, a little glitch can collapse and end up with, $50,000 bill and many further complications of developments like infections and other, follow-on issues happen. As these things are evolving, you have management within the hospital systems that says, okay, I've got to work on this today, but when we transfer over to that, it's got to also work. And how do I do this? I don't have any extra money to invest and absorb in doing the right thing. It's like I'm going to be penalized here or penalized there, but I have zero margin. And trying to even look at doing a burden, always, innovation costs money initially. You're going to invest in training, you're going to invest in measuring, you're going to invest in adoption. And it's an additional burden that the system can't handle. And people are cynical that innovation will help the workflow process. The easy thing to avoid the additional work of change is to be cynical. We have an interesting experience within the Cleveland Clinic. We did a measure that we thought that the patients who have access to the program for their upcoming cardio care would call less. And after we measured it, they call more. So it was like, ooh. But then when we interviewed the nurses, what the nurses told us is, the calls I get now are why I went to nursing school. People are calling with really important healthcare questions. They're not calling me about where do I park and when can my family visit and what kind of Band-Aids do I buy and what's the soap called. They're getting that through the program that, basic support. But now they're being challenged to do what they love. And that was a really important plus to the nursing staff there. They really liked that. And the personalities, because in healthcare, remember, it's all delivered by people. And each of those people has a personality. And some are going to foster change and accept it, and some are not. Some doctors, some doctors want to be able to be free to deliver care in their own way. They don't want to be bound by rules or limits, neither in the process nor in funding. And it just doesn't work that way. It's getting to be more and more of a defined process to deliver care, and it's getting more and more follow the rules. And what we've seen is there's a lot of fighting about this, with a lot of pushback in healthcare, but someone just recently did a study, and what they're showing is that the older physicians fight it. The younger physicians welcome it. They understand it. They didn't grow up in that environment, and they're more comfortable with having, a prescribed approach to it. So I think a lot of what, and to emphasize again, a lot of what we're going in healthcare is because it's an evolving system. And different systems are in different places in that evolution. You'll still find hospital systems that don't have an electronic health record out there. And you'll find other systems that are humming along beautifully. And then everywhere in between. So it's a complex system of payments. Sometimes you're paid by Medicare and by on Medicaid. Sometimes it's split. Sometimes you come into the donut hole and certain things aren't covered. You have private insurance. You have and the insurer has to be open. If there's a cost for the innovation, the insurer has to agree to cover that cost. And they may not agree. One may and one may not. And we ran into a situation, and I started to describe the lung cancer, where we were saying, this program will keep the lung cancer patients out of the emergency room when they recognize common complications. And the clinical director said, that'll cost me money, because that's part of my billings. The ones who say to the insurance, and they're not citing how this works. And so, I think we've all heard about the inefficiencies of the misalignment of the healthcare alignment of the payments with the decision making. It's real. I mean, it is a really real issue. And within that, not only is it complicated, but then it's complicated by age and by type of coverage. And this is just one example of looking at how complicated it can be. So it's not, it really is not one industry. It's this huge mass of different objects that can happen. So what's the takeaway? Don't do this. Go into sports. So what you have to do in healthcare is you have to target innovations that improve an existing process. So incremental improvements, I think, are going to be a lot easier to have adopted. You're not going to say, hey, I found a new way to do brain treatment. It's not. You have to incrementally improve an existing process. Focus on the ease of use. Make it easy for everybody to use. One more keystroke will kill your adoption. We had a system where they had to log in, and it was killing people. We eliminated the login, replaced it, and the usage doubled overnight. It's like, really? One keystroke? The stress people live under, and to us it's one keystroke, to them it's, oh, what a pain. Make sure you map out the workflows for all stakeholders, because if you left somebody out, they can kill the usage of it. And we've seen that. We've seen that where one group wasn't included and they were vital, and we were having the end of the pilot review period, and they were sitting there like this. And they said, well, we didn't see any of this improvement. We didn't see, and we actually had to extend that pilot another 3 months to include them. But, live and learn. Live and learn. That was our fault, not theirs. Yeah, make sure you understand the buying process and establish what will close the sale, what do I have to do to sell this? And then understand how you get to scalability. Solving a solution in one hospital is not going to a company make. You have to be able to take that solution and scale it quickly and easily across and make the sale easy. You've got to make it really easy for this industry to buy. And you've got to rely on telling them that, they bought it. That's a key acceptability in this. prepare for a long sales cycle and a long proof cycle, and you have to have the funds to go through them. This isn't an industry where you can bootstrap, because a sale might take 15 months or 18 months or 3 years. And how do you stay alive while you wait for that adoption when people can go down the street and invest in the sports technology? You know, and again, prepare for low success rates in your sales. So you have to be going after 50 if you want 5. You can't go after 10 if you want 5. There's too many things that can go wrong in this industry. And don't give up. I mean, if you can figure out the funding, go in with your eyes open, know what the lay of the land is, and go after it, because when you finally get there, it's going to be worth it. I mean, now we're in the position where we're doing, instead of doing contracts with hospitals, we're doing them with, we're in negotiations with major providers across the hospitals. So I'm not knocking on doctors anymore and selling to individuals. We're selling to the suppliers of machines and devices who provide the hospital, the people who currently deliver education within various segments. So we have the proof data, we have the functioning system, and now we can earn those partnerships. And they take a while too, but they take less time than selling a doctor, actually. And again, so never give up, because I told you resilience is the key, and it's the key to winning, because it's really hard to beat a person who never gives up. And that's Babe Ruth. We all know the stories. He had the most strikeouts and everything, but he had the best batting record. And I think entrepreneurs especially have to have a very tough skin and face it this way. No mistake is ever a loss. Every mistake is a win. Because those mistakes redirect you to the right path. Because when you're doing innovation, you're not following other people. You're creating and you're forging a new path. And so the way you learn by going that path is going down wrong roads. And in a traditional career, going down wrong roads, and people are like, oh my God, you made a mistake. You know, well, as entrepreneurs, we go, oh, of course we did. Thank God we made that early. There's a concept called fail fast. It's like, oh, that'll never work. Okay, thank you for telling me. Let's go over here. But the other thing I have to say in terms of why I think entrepreneuring is really important is because if you're not entrepreneuring, you're living someone else's dream. If you're not entrepreneuring, it's someone else telling you every day what you have to be focused on today. And God didn't give all these smart folks at CMU, all these brilliant minds, so that they could wake up in the morning and follow the direction of some middle-level manager. So for God's sakes, don't go do that. And you know, so one thing I compare it, going to corporate America, although out of CMU you can go to corporate America for huge salaries, and then that's great, right? But it's like living at home with your parents, because they're going to tell you what to wear, when to get up, when to go to bed, what you're having for dinner, when you're going on vacation, how to dress, what political attitude is appropriate, what you can't say. You will always be a child in corporate America, because you are not living the dream, you're not living your life. Going out and going, and I encourage you to form a team to do it. Form a team and go out and start your own company. It's like moving out. Now you've got your own apartment. You got to figure out how the hell you're going to pay for it. But it's your own apartment. You're waking up. You're eating all the crap you ever wanted to eat, or eating well, whatever you choose. But you're living your life. You're deciding how you're going to live. You're doing what's important. I mean, what's good? You know, what good is a huge salary if at the end of the day you're not doing what's important in life? So, and you know, for us, what we do in MedRespond is we make the hospital care journey easier, and we support people who wouldn't have that time with their doctor any other way. And we're going after the simple things. We're not doing the high-end thing. We're telling the engineer to clean their towels. So, and now I'll just leave it open to questions if you have any. And thank you for taking the time today. Yes.
Have you uncovered any tricks or heuristics, if you will, for identifying early adopter visionary types, to use a standard typology of market behavior? Have you identified any heuristics for uncovering early adopter innovator types, either who could be potential customers or non-customer champions or advocates who can even join an advisory board, for example? Have you uncovered any ways to identify such people?
We haven't done that. It's a very important thing that we need to be doing right now in the development of our company. We've been really focused too much on the one-on-one, making it happen, measuring it, and doing it. And now I think the heuristics and the algorithms you are proposing are exactly where we need to be.
Has it been part of your evolution to get people on, say, an advisory board who could open up doors for you? And if so, how did you engage with them? How did you identify them, et cetera? How did you work with them?
Tom Dutry was one of our earliest people that we adopted, some of the managers within the company. One of the problems we had is we're Pittsburgh-based, so we were attracting Pittsburgh talent. And what we're finding now, which is great, but you're not going to become a global leader with Pittsburgh talent. And now we're going out across the landscape and bringing in people from other. We're looking at the people who would make sense as partners or acquirers, and we're finding those people and forming relationships with them to establish that kind of advisory and networking and bringing the business to us. Those relationships are the way we have, like I said, right now what we're focusing on getting into big contracts that go across all healthcare. It's through those efforts that we've reached out to the key decision makers in those industries to do that. You can't come the bottom up through those organizations. You have to have someone taking you in. So that's really what we're doing. That's where our key growth is right now. So who's going to run out and start a healthcare company?
Could you tell us a little bit about your funding history? How you kept this alive?
This is a very typical funding history. Early stage was founders' shares. And so the founders put money into it. I put money into it, and a couple of our other founders put funds into it. And then we got some of our first customers, and but we weren't making money, of course. We're losing our shirts on our first clients because those were our beta clients. And then we went out and we went after Pittsburgh Life Sciences Greenhouse funding, and we went after the community kinds of funding. And then one of our board members had a very good relationship with an individual with extremely deep pockets. And they did the first angel round for us to allow us to grow to the next level. And then we started having enough business that we were covering our costs. We were basically successfully bootstrapping. But I'll share this with you because I think this is a key entrepreneurial lesson that you might find yourself into. The first success we had was within clinical trials. We were tripling the success of the clinical trial recruitment efforts. And so we partnered with a group out of Rockville called MMG. And they're an ad agency that exclusively focuses on clinical trials. And we partnered with them and said, we'll do these programs so what the assistant did is, here's a clinical trial, you have breast cancer, here's the result of the studies that we've seen, here's the trials that are out there, here's how long they're gonna last, blah, blah, blah. And so people would be able to look at those, they'd be able to take them home and share them with their families, and that's what they did. So we really were expanding the reach of the clinical trial recruitment process. And in that cycle, we did programs with Merck, Glaxo, Pfizer. We are on Pfizer.com's clinical trial page, Shire, Otsuka, really a lot. But the problem was every project, so it was build it, the trial's done, take it down, new trial, build it. So it was an agency model and a project model. And you've all learned enough that the value of your company in that kind of a scenario is equal to 1 times revenue. So if you're making $1 million, you're only worth $1 million. If you have $1 million in contracts this year, you're only worth $1 million. And there's plenty of industries that would discount that because this year contracts don't have to all be resold for next year's contracts. So it's really a horrible business model that we found ourselves. We didn't intend to be in that model, but all of a sudden that's where we were, because our dominant reach to the marketplace was through an ad agency, and they weren't going outside into the other opportunities with any of those. So what we had to do is, we didn't abandon that. I mean, right now we're doing a contract with Takeda, and we'll be explaining clinical trials on Takeda.com. But we had to pivot and say we want to be in patient engagement because that's a scalable solution. But we still do this, but we moved over to patient engagement, and we needed some additional funding, but we didn't have the revenues in our new market. And so we were in business for a while, we had contracts, we had big names, but in our new market segment, we didn't have $1 million in revenues yet. And the VCs will all come in, they'll knock at your door and they'll meet with you. And the very first question, do you have between $1 and $5 million in revenues, recurring revenues? Not yet. Call us when you do. I love what you're doing, call us what you do. That we probably have 20 VCs on the list of call us when you do. And this year we'll cross that, but we don't necessarily want a VC. But what we ended up doing is we ended up going back to our original round of investors and doing another raise through them. And we are out right now where we're negotiating with people for investment rounds between $1 and $5 million. But the thing you want to do, of course, is you want to postpone your valuation till you get to ride the revenues. So the negotiations we're having are about bringing in the funds and delaying the valuation. So it's a convertible debt that doesn't convert for 3 to 5 years, unless there's a trigger of another investment or acquisition. So
how positive feedback are you getting from your investors for that convertible note type? Not valuing the company, but delaying it. Is that a good thing for them, or? Yeah, it's good.
We're getting pushback. Yeah, it's all good for us.
Yeah.
And so we've had to compromise. We've had to create formulas for but that's all part of the negotiating process. What I hate is when people go, here's the standard, this is the rule, we don't accept anything from that. Well, then go away. You've got to be able to negotiate, or they don't value you. So, but I'd be happy to help anyone any way I can. Or if you have any thoughts, or please reach out to me. Be happy to talk to you. And I'd love to explore your ideas on expanding our board of advisors and reshaping that. And I owe you lunch.
I mean, there must be general heuristics for identifying advisory board members. So for example, one is find people who very recently retired, and they probably still want to be valuable to the world, but now they're free, right? So one heuristic I've come across is approach recent retirees. But I'm wondering if in healthcare in particular, since it's so complex, I completely agree with you. There's so many stakeholders, it's like nothing I've ever seen in my entire life. There must be some other heuristics for identifying people who can be champions or advisory board members that help we move the ball. And I wonder if have you come across anything else?
No, I haven't.
Recently retired doctors.
Huh?
Recently retired doctors.
Retired doctor?
Yeah.
Well, I said recent retirees, so
Yeah,
you're
but
adding
I'm
doctor.
adding the doctor to it.
Yeah.
How do you identify a doctor who's open to innovation versus? Never mind.
I have
Are you
some
a doctor?
thoughts. I have some thoughts about it.
Well, yes?
I have a question. So you chose your target market to be hospitals. So I had wanted to ask you, the number of hospitals across the U.S. is going down globally, actually, I think, based upon what I've read. And the number of long-term care, the need for it is increasing, and telehealth and home care, that's also increasing. Have you considered, how did you assess your target market? I guess that's my question, knowing the whole, the medical needs.
It's, you're right, the level of surgeries is declining. And so if you sit there and say, I'm not going to enter a declining market, the problem is, and I have the statistics on the top of my head, a certain percentage of our GDP is going to surgeries, and it's going to continue to go to surgeries for the next 20 years.
There's still a need, right?
Yeah, so it's like within that, so there's a lot of chronic care being treated in hospitals. That's going to go into homes. And to tell you the truth, this going after that integration with the coach, with the medical device, was really targeting home care. Because, when you look at dialysis machines, a major push is to have them be converted to in-home care. But if you look at the manual for how to use an in-home care system, it's 160 pages long. And almost every third line says, and if you don't do it, you'll get peritonitis. And if you don't do this, you'll get peritonitis. I'm not doing that. So, but yeah, it is a complicated system, but the numbers are so big, it's not like we're gonna drop off the earth. So it's like you can't stay high level, you have to drill down a little bit further to go, okay, where within are those dollars moving? The problem is, the healthcare, while we're moving over to home care, we're not investing enough in it right now. It's sort of like, I talked to someone who headed the home care group of a major hospital system, and she said, we're like that adopted sister that you put in a basement, so.
So HIPAA exists for very valid reasons, but it's a big impediment to patient engagement. Do you have any takeaways in your experience on how to navigate HIPAA when you're working on those kinds of two-way communications with EMR that you mentioned?
Well, I think the easiest way is to separate the patient identifiers from the information, so that, like when we get the information from electronic health record, we take their member number and generate an anonymous ID, and then access to the system comes through that. And so that only when you link those two together, which is on the hospital side, do you have to worry about HIPAA. But then whenever you really want to follow up and ask patients questions, it's undeniable. You're gonna be in the land of HIPAA. And now there's a lot of software systems that help you, and you can buy cloud services that are HIPAA compliant, and so it's getting better. So you can avoid it, but then as you go deeper and deeper into providing services, you're not going to completely avoid it. And let's look for the solutions out there. People have tackled that problem before. There's a really amazing, so one of the issues with HIPAA, there's some controversy around HIPAA right now that's being discussed around mental health. We have someone who worked with us whose mother is severely mentally ill, and while he was away, she was arrested by police and taken to a hospital. But because of HIPAA requirements, he wasn't able to find out where, who, what, or anything. And so one of the things they're doing right now in the mental health is they're discussing having a power of attorney that circumvents the mental health, HIPAA requirements for mental health conditions. I mean, imagine if your mother's, you know she's arrested somewhere, but you can't get her permission because she hasn't given anybody permission to tell you because she's mentally ill. So that's a sideline.
It's relevant.
Yeah, it really is. It's like, how do you deal with that? So, thank you all. And I invite you again, if you have any thoughts, please reach out to me. It's a pleasure to be here. And you're all lucky to be at CMU. This is just such a wonderful place. Thank you.